What's up, Wargamers? Welcome back to World of Wargaming, and today, with great vehemence and excitement, I invite you to grab a chair, a snack, a beverage, whatever you need to facilitate calmness and relaxation, and let me talk at you for a minute. Today, I am thrilled to have in my hand to talk to you about Snarl, Issue 2 from Snarling Badgers. This is their yearly zine. It's got supplements and add-on content for all of their games, which I own all of and thoroughly enjoy. Some more than others. I do have my favorites, but I like them all. But this has got stuff in it for my favorite game that they have made. So let's get in here. So in this issue of Snarl, as in the last issue, it opens with a new micro game. So a game that uses a small model count and has a very short rule set. This one is called The Great Goblin Argle-Bargle. Argle-Bargle, I learned from Uncle Adam's video, is Old English parlance for a dispute or a fight or a quarrel, or maybe even resulting in a round of fisticuffs or duel. So we have 20 to 23 goblins, a 3x3 play area, something to measure within inches, and the play sheet, the roster or whatever, which is available for free on the Snarling Badger website, snarlingbadger.com. You start with 13 goblins on 20 to 32 mil bases, but they can be any kind of goblins. What they're modeled with doesn't really seem to matter, which is cool because then you can just grab some gobbos that you think look cool. One of those goblins must be designated as the Great Goblin. He is the leader of your warband, and he can never die for any reason. He cannot be removed from the board. But if you ever have just your Great Goblin, you lose. Your tribe retreats from the Argle-Bargle and goes back to their goblin-y ways. Each tribe of goblins has 3 main stats: movement, offense, defense. I like that. Short, sweet, straight to the point. Now, those are the stats for your tribe, not individual goblins. Base offense is 5, and this dictates how many dice you get to roll. So with an offense of 5, you would get 5 dice for your attacks. And it can be modified. If you have 6 or more goblins, you add 1 to it. If you have 12 or more, you gain 2. If you have 18 or more goblins, you get plus 3. Now you may ask, but we only start with 13 goblins. How can we possibly have 18? Well, that's because you can find other goblins in the battlefield and add them to your tribe for the Great Argle-Bargle. Base defense is also 5. However, the 5 for your defense does not represent how many dice you roll. It represents your target number for the D6. You get to choose a skill for your tribe, which is an overarching buff that your entire tribe gets. So things that will affect your combat, your defense, your movement, etc. Things of that sort. You then must select a god for your tribe to follow. And I love the names that they came up with. So you got Gobble, Giblix, Griebig, Gadababa, Gobblerex. Outstanding names. I don't know if they thought of those or if they used a generator, but kudos, great names. Your god, again, gives you a bonus on the battlefield that covers your entire tribe. I really like the activation system because it's got a bolt action-y type activation system where it's random. So you put different colored dice or chits or whatever you want into the bag. 3 for each player. And when you activate, the entire tribe activates. And you go back and forth randomly until each tribe is activated 3 times. During the activation, they can move, attack, and perform a shenanigan. The first thing you have to do when you activate is to see if any of your gobbos are going to run away from the Argle-Bargle. So on a 5+, you lose D3. Okay, so your force is going to be in kind of constant flux, gaining and losing. I think that's good, both for just fun of getting to take models off the table, put models on the table, and because I think that it can potentially help to further speed the game if those rolls are going bad or whatnot. Just I like a game that can be played in under an hour. You start stretching beyond that, and then I start to lose focus. And when you're activating, you can go through those options of move, fight, shenanigan in any order that you please. You don't have to move first and then do the things. It's not phases like that, so you can do it whichever way you feel is going to work best for your strategy against your opponent. And I like when you have that freedom. I don't love it so much when you're forced to move and then do stuff. I think it's a better game design when you have the agency to choose what you're going to do first. One particularly important thing to make note of is that when you're moving, your gobos have to end their movements within 6 inches of your Great Goblin. Important to remember is you don't want to leave anybody behind. They get distracted and then they just wander off. Also worth noting, with your defector roll, which is the roll when you activate to see if people run away. If you have 6 or fewer, it's on a 6 up. Now, you can also be called on to gather goblins to your Great Goblin, where they come out from under rocks and leaves and in holes and trees and all the other places that goblins hide, and will join you. Now, that happens on a 4 up as opposed to a 5 up. So it's a little bit easier to gather them than it is to lose them. That's good. If you have 18 or more goblins, that roll does, however, become a 6 up. As previously mentioned, when you move up to your movement stat and you have to stay within 6 inches of the Great Goblin, but there are a few different moving types. There is sprinting, scrambling, and swarming. Swarming, you move up to your regular move, but if you make an offense attack this turn, you will get +1 dice to that dice pool. Scrambling is you move half, but if you make any defector roll on terrain, you get to roll twice and choose the result that you like better. Sprinting, as the name implies, allows you to move faster, to the tune of doubling up your movement. However, there are some drawbacks. You first off have to roll a 4+, or roll a dice, and on a 4 up, you lose a goblin as he just couldn't keep up with the rest of the tribe. Also, if you're called to make any defector rolls and you lose goblins to that roll, you lose an additional goblin on top, because they just couldn't keep up with the herd. To get any bonuses for terrain or completing objectives, the entire tribe must be completely on the terrain or on the base footprint of it if one exists. The first time you roll up onto a piece of terrain, you get to make a gather goblins roll. So then, just like we said earlier, roll your dice on a 4 up, you get D3 more goblins. Climbing works exactly how you would think it would. It's every inch moved counts as 2 inches of movement. You can jump any gap up to 3 inches without having to make a test. Anything longer than 3 inches, you can't make it. You just got to be able to land the model where it sits unsupported or completely on whatever you're jumping to. If a model won't stand in the spot, if it won't fit, then it can't sit. So that would be an illegal move if the model just tips over or won't stay where you put it. And of course, as with always, you gotta stay within 6 inches of your Great Goblin. We then move to a conversation of combat, because what is an Argle Bargle without some pugilism? So we have to determine if the enemy's in range, determine if it's a melee or a ranged attack, create our dice pool from our offense stat plus any bonuses, roll it. It's the target number for when someone is making an offense attack against you. So if your defense is base 5, the opponent has to roll 5s to hit you with their dice pool. Each success is a damage and will remove 1 goblin from the opposing tribe. If you are within 1 inch, you are in melee. If you are up to 6 inches away, you are at ranged combat. And if you are more than 6 inches away, you cannot attack them. But you could move to within 6 and then fire, or move much closer within 6 and attack. We then come to that last option of your turn, shenanigans. And not good-spirited, fun shenanigans. No, these are evil shenanigans. So once in your turn, you can do one of these things. You can set traps, you can release pets, you can start a fire, you can sing a goblin song, or you can perform a ritual, or you can dance if you want to, and you can do the goblin dance. Each of those has a different thing. I'm not going to go into what each and every one of them does. spend the $8 and you can read that for yourself. Objectives represent whatever thing it is that you're out hunting for during the Great Argle Bargle. And you control them until, once you get them, you control them until you're completely removed, until your tribe is removed from the board. Now, if you were carrying objectives when you were removed, you place them where your Great Goblin was at. And they should be about 25 millimeters in size. The game ends when one of two things happen. When there is only one player left standing that has more goblins plus his Great Goblin left, because as soon as you're down to just your Great Goblin, he runs away to fight, gather a new tribe, and fight another day. Or after 4 turns. I love a set turn length for the game, and I love it when that number is between 4 and 5. I think that is the optimal turnaround. If at the end of 4 turns there are still people with their Great Goblin plus goblins on the board, then it is considered a draw. Into the post game, you have a chart for calculating your reward dice. So +2 if you're victorious, for nothing if you lose, part of a draw, explored all the terrain, explored at least 4 pieces of terrain, explored all the terrain on the board. And then those dice go into a pool, which you can then roll. So you determine your total number of dice, add any bonus dice, which you may have, and then roll. For each 6, you gain 1 randomly determined reward from the list below, which would be 2 through 12 on a 2d6, and it's various, shiny baubles, monster skulls, just the random things that goblins like to pick up on their journeys through the forest, desert, caves, and swamps. If at the end of the game you were reduced to fewer than your starting 12 regular goblins, then you immediately return back to that 12 goblins, because it's assumed that between then and the next round of the Argle Bargle, your charismatic leader will find some more goblins that want to flock to his banner. And if over the course of playing the game, any player who ends 3 games in a row with 20 or more goblins is declared the Great Goblin of the Great Argle Bargle. So each fight is kind of just one stage. It's not the entire Argle Bargle, it's just a small piece of the Argle Bargle. We then come into the various types of terrain, and this is pretty par for the course for the way Snarling Badger, Vince, and Adam do their terrain. So you have your different types: cave, rivers, pools, swamp, woods, etc. And then each of those things has a couple of different variations under it for how it can affect gameplay. You roll to pick which scenario you're doing, but still randomly generated, or of course you could just pick. There are 12 total scenarios. So you're rolling a d6, and then on a 1 to 3, it's one chart. On a 4, 5, 6, it's the other chart. That's a lot of scenarios for a small game. For a small game, for a game that's this many pages, that's a lot of scenarios. I'm a big fan of that because that's more variation, more different things that you can do. And then we come in, that's the end of the Great Goblin Argle Bargle. I like that I've come across, there have been quite a few mini games recently, kind of indie games, that use goblins as the focus, because goblins are just goofy and fun, and they're small models, so they're quicker to paint than regular models that were equal scale models that are normal sized. And I like that too. Plus goblins are just fun. For Death Wizards, their newest game, we have 4 new minions that you can take. So we have an Arisen Wolf at a rating of 1, a Dread Warrior at a rating of 2, a Flaming Horror at a rating of 3, and a Nightwalker at a rating of 4. Nightwalker sounds terrifying. I need to start a new Death Wizards campaign. My last one did not go very well for me. I think that I overestimated the Dread Horde Master, or maybe just did it wrong. Probably the latter. It's usually user error in those kinds of situations. But I need to break that out and make a new Necromancer and give that another go. Because it is a neat game. I like that you're playing the bad guy. Like you're kind of the antagonist as opposed to the protagonist. Next, we've got a supply crate drop for the Forces of Majestic 13. We've got some new gear, both for Phase 1 and Phase 2. Things, we got weapon stabilizers, explosive traps. I like the idea of having traps. That sounds fun. Wire retech flexes, environmental suits, razor suits, a breacher fit. That sounds cool. You ignore the penalty for difficult terrain. So various things to add a little bit more spice, a little bit more variety to your games of Majestic 13. We then come to the part of this year's Snarl that I'm the most excited for, which is we're getting some new solo content for Reign in Hell. Reign in Hell is my favorite game that they have made. I don't know how the rest of them fall or in what order, but I do know that I love Reign in Hell the most. It's my favorite. And I finished playing through all of that solo material like years ago. So I'm really excited to have some new stuff to sink my teeth into there. And I'm also very excited that this solo campaign is 3 scenarios, and they take place immediately after the events of the Oculus Spear. So if you haven't played the Oculus Spear yet, first off, what have you been doing with your life? Second, you should probably go check that out if you're interested in playing this, because this might not make sense, or you might just not be prepared for it on a level XP wise if you have not already played through the Oculus Spear. Big difference, however, between the Oculus Spear and this, and I think this is a great change, is that in Oculus Spear, each scenario, the things had their own AI, and I get that because they were trying to create kind of a different experience with each of the scenarios, because they wanted the monsters to be doing different things and have different goals and objectives. But in this, all 3 scenarios use the same monster AI, so once you run that loop a few times, you should be set for the rest of the games in the campaign or in the DLC. Let's call it what it is. It's DLC, and I'm here for it. The only thing that would have made me happier than this for Reign in Hell is if they had made a straight up randomized kind of roguelike scenario engine generator for Reign in Hell. But I am by no means complaining or denigrating what is in front of me, because I am extremely happy to have some brand new content solo for Reign in Hell, because again, it's my favorite one that they've made. I like them all, but it's definitely my favorite. And that, my friends, is Snarl 2024. It is $8. You can get it from their website. You can obtain it from Wargame Vault. And if you get it from Wargame Vault, and I assume also from their website, you're going to get 2 versions. You're going to get the one that is set up to actually be printed out as a little zine, and one that is meant to be viewed as a PDF on a screen. I like physical books. I want to hold it in my hand. I want to smell the paper. I want a physical object. But not everybody's like me, and that's why it's great that the world caters to all kinds of different people. If you enjoy Snarling Badgers games, I think this is an auto pickup to add to your collection. If you don't already have their games, $8 for a fun indie game is a fair price for any creator to charge, I think. On top of that, if you own the other games, you get extra content and things that you can use in those games. So for me, no-brainer. If you've not played any of Snarling Badgers games, I highly recommend Reign in Hell. But also, this might be a good place to dip your toes into the way that they write games. That being said, I'm done. Thank you so much for hanging out and letting me talk at you for a few minutes about Snarl 2024. I hope you have an absolutely amazing rest of your day.